Hey everybody, this is Dwayne again. We're going to do this a little different tonight. It's been raining a good bit lately, and I'm kind of running a little bit behind schedule this week, and so we're going to actually try an inside gig tonight, okay? And so I think it's going to work out best, and that way I'm a little bit more relaxed when I talk with you about the lesson tonight. And the lesson tonight is about a gift, okay? The name of the lesson is Grace. And grace is basically talking about a gift. And we're going to start out with this. We're still on Principle 6 and we're still on Step 9. I'm going to read those out to you now. So it's basically the same thing that we read last week and the week before, but it's very important and we have to understand these, and that's why we keep going over them multiple times to kind of get that repetition so that we can help memorize it and it can stay with us. Principle 6 says evaluate all of my relationships. That's basically what the whole inventory was all about. It's about healing and evaluating things that we've probably shuffled in some filing cabinets in our mind that's affecting us. And it's things that we need to bring back out of that file cabinet, and we need to address them properly because they're cluttering up space there, so to speak. So offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me and make amends for harm I've done to others, except when to do so would harm them or others. Happy are the merciful, Matthew 5:7. Happy are the peacemakers, Matthew 5:9. And we're also on Step 9 this week and next week as well. Step 9 says we may direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And by direct amends, that means we went to them directly in most cases. And I spoke, as the last couple of weeks I've mentioned, there's cases where we can't go to them. For one thing, it may hurt them or their family. The other thing is there might be some violence there on their end that would not be a good idea because they're not stable. Another reason might be that they're in the grave, and so there's other ways to deal with this. It's still, just because they're in the grave don't mean that we don't need to make amends to them. Okay, I mean, you say, well, how do you make amends to someone who's dead? Well, you just work it out. You work it out. That's how you do it, because a lot of this is about healing yourself anyway. Their life is over. They're in the grave. What they did throughout their life, there's not anything they can do about it at this point. Okay. But you're still at a place where there's something you can do, and you can heal, and you can improve your life, and you can improve the lives of those around you. So the verse that goes with this Step 9 is, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled with them, and then come and offer your gift. Okay? And it's interesting that, we're talking about a gift here, in this Step 9. And this is Matthew 5:23 through 24 is what that verse was. So it's interesting that we're talking about this gift there as far as being an altar, giving a gift at the altar, for penance, so to speak, for trying to do better in our life. And we're talking about grace, which is also a free gift that we're going to talk about in more detail here in a little bit. Basically, a lot of us, it took me a long time, and I'm still trying to understand all of it, but the older I get and the more I talk with God about it, the more that He shows me. And just like any friend, the more you hang out with them, the more you talk with them, the more you study them and analyze them, the more you understand them, and the more things that your friend shows you. And so you get to know them. It's a relationship. It's like, you can't get to know someone that you only talk to once a year, so to speak, and you never see, and you don't know their actions, so to speak. Um, but anyway, so forgiveness was, we talked about forgiveness last couple of weeks before, and before that we talked about amends, and now we're talking about the third aspect of this trilogy, which is grace. So to go back a little bit, principle 5 was evaluating relationships and finding forgiveness and peace for those who we have harmed and making amends to those we've harmed. And step 6 was making a list of those we've harmed and being willing to make amends to them. So that was just as important. It wasn't just about making that list of the people. It was also being willing and making a conscious decision that we were going to make amends to them, and that's where we're at. And grace is and forgiveness is like I told you last week, being able to accept that God forgives is kind of dependent on our willingness to forgive others. And that's, we expect forgiveness from God, so why wouldn't God expect us to forgive someone else, and set the example, so to speak? After all, aren't we made in God's image? I mean, that's all the way in the very beginning in Genesis. God made us in His image. So if we're made in His image and if we expect Him to forgive us, then it just makes sense that He's going to be looking at us to forgive others. And I think we've pretty much spelled that out. That's biblical. We went over some verses the last couple of lessons, or before, last couple of weeks before, that was basically speaking of that, and one of which was that prayer that Jesus, how He taught the disciples how we should pray to God. The only place in the New Testament where Jesus said that His disciples actually asked Him, how should we pray? And He said, well, this is how you should pray. And so you need to really pay close attention to every single line and every single word of how we should pray. And one of those things talked about forgiveness. So now we're going to talk about grace. Okay. Grace is a gift. 2 Corinthians 12:9-10 says, "But He said to me, my grace is enough for you. When you're weak, my power is made perfect in you. So I am very happy to brag about my weakness. Then Christ's power can live in me. For this reason, I'm happy when I have weakness, insults, hard times, sufferings, and all kinds of troubles for Christ. Because when I am weak, then I shall truly be strong." Let's back up a second. How many times has things been going good in your life where you did not talk to the Lord, did not talk to God? You distanced yourself, so to speak. And your prayers probably went lacking as well. Probably shallow, short, days in between, so to speak. But when we went through troubles and trials, and when we were going through suffering, and when we were anxious about something going on in our life, so many times we pull close to the Lord in our weakness, in our hard times, in our weak times, when we want something, basically, like a child going to their father or their mother when they want some new toy at the store, so to speak, and they've pretty much been playing to themselves, outside in the yard, or nowadays, video games or whatever. But when they want something, they go talk to their parents about it. Well, so to speak, I guess going to talk to your father on earth is similar to going to talk to your father in heaven, right? Basically, you go talk to him when you want something, a lot of times. But when you are in trouble, you go talk to him even more. And that's what, similar to what we're talking about here. Basically when you're weak, you're putting your flesh to the side. You're putting your strength to the side, and then all of a sudden you get humble, right? and you talk to God. But when things are going good and you're on top of the world, you're all arrogant, so to speak, and you don't think you need God as much. But the thing is, and when you get older, you understand this. But when you're young, you're stupid, and you think you know everything already. So, but when you get older, you start understanding that, if you had been closer to God even during the good times, and been talking to God during the good times and praying for things, particularly the major decisions in your life, things you were about to do or things you were doing, so to speak, then there would be far less times where you were in trouble, so to speak. And so that's something that if I had to teach or wanted to convey to younger people, talk to God in the good times just as much or more as when you talk to Him in the hard times. Because if you talk to Him in the good times, there's not going to be as many hard times, So anyway, weakness in that respect brings closeness. You're more open to listening to something when things are not, going your way, so to speak. So, anyway, I want to talk about, gifts a little bit. Next week, we're going to do an acrostic, and I'm going to do it inside, just like I'm doing now. And, we have to have something for next week, too. So I'm going to just go ahead and do both of them at one time, and I'll upload the second half of this next week. But the acrostic for next week is going to be each letter of the word grace, okay? God's gift for the G, the R in grace is received by our faith. The A in grace is accepted by God's love. The C in grace is Christ paid the price. And the E in grace is everlasting gift. But we're going to save that, and I'm going to upload that next week. But for right now, I want to talk to you a minute about grace, okay? And I want to talk to you about gifts. And I want to talk to you about something that I've observed over the years, and something that I've come to understand what I think some of this means, okay? I remember, 25 years ago, I had a Sunday school teacher named Mr. Roberts, Mr. Ken Roberts, and he would say something every now and then, and it just stuck with me. And what he would say was, it's not what you do, it's why you do it. It's what your motives are. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. Do you do it out of a place of a good heart? Do you do it because you're trying to get recognition? Do you do it because you're trying to get some kind of bonus points? Do you do it to try to just act like you're a good person? Do you do it, why are you doing it, And I think that's probably very important. I don't think it is. I know it is. I know it's very important. Why do you do what you do? Do you do it just because it's a job? Do you do it because you love it? Do you do it, because you're just trying to survive, which is a good reason, Why do you do what you do? And I guess, what is your heart like when you're doing it, So, okay, let's go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible. We're talking about Cain and Abel, As the story goes, it was two brothers. Both of them gave a gift to God. God accepted one of the gifts, and he kind of frowned a little bit on the other gift. And that really made one of the brothers upset. And he went and killed his other brother, the one that actually, had found favor with God. And so you have to ask, well, a gift is a gift, right? Um, both of them gave a gift, so what's the difference? Why did God frown on one and not frown on the other? Well, I think he probably goes to is God is pretty smart, right? I mean, he did create the universe, and so he pretty well understands people's heart as far as motives. Um, you know, he can pretty well see through anything that you and me do. Um, you know, some people are pretty good at spotting con artists, so to speak, and some people are pretty good at understanding whether or not someone is giving something freely or whether or not they're giving it against their will and they're resenting giving it to someone. So one of the brothers gave something and it just wasn't something right there, okay, and God knew it, and so, and let me ask you this: if you were in God's shoes, if someone gave you a gift and you knew that they really didn't want to give it to you, would you want it anyway? I mean, if you were pure of heart yourself, would you want it anyway? And I think for most people, legitimately, I think the answer would be no. I mean, at least that's the way I've always felt about it. If someone gave me something and they didn't want to give it to me, then I want to walk away and just say, forget it. And sometimes, that might be to my detriment if it was some financial, something for services that I had performed. But I just was never one of those people that wanted someone to do something against their will. And, I'm not going to get too deep into all that, but I think I think that's a question that we need to ask, because I think throughout the Bible there's a number of examples where, God didn't accept this or God didn't accept that. And so I think partially that's what free will is about, And I think that we have to believe in free will, and, forget about these scholars that go with every single point of Calvinism. I cannot believe that, because if there was such a thing as Calvinism, there would be no heaven and hell, or if there was, it would not be justified. It would not be a just heaven and hell, because if we do things and we can't help it, and if we're predetermined to go a certain way, and we have no control over that, then basically it's not just. And to believe in the God that I believe in, I have to believe that there's a just system. There's nothing else just in this world. I mean, sure, the courts, have justice sometimes, occasionally, but so many times it's biased, ignorance, all the evidence isn't presented, or some evidences went off, not presented. Lawyers even are not always honest. It's just some things are premeditated. People on the jury are biased. Granted, justice does occur a lot of times, and we do have to have a system such as that, and we are made in God's image, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. There's only one person that sees all the evidence. You don't like a guy because he has a temper, so you put him in jail because he lost his temper during the trial, so to speak. Well, and the lawyer sees the weakness and points that out, and he pushes the guy or pushes the woman. So there's a lot of tools that are being used that aren't really fair, so to speak. So, but God is, as it goes, the one entity that sees everything. He sees through emotions. He sees through outbreaks. He sees through all the biases of jurors and judges and lawyers and lies, and he sees the truth. And so, in my view, I have to believe that we have free will, and that we freely choose which path we want to go. And therefore, if we choose which path we want to go, then we are certainly responsible for that. And even though we have things happen to us in the past that affect us temporarily, some things very bad, for example, when we're being raised or when we're very young, and even things that can happen when we're older and grown that are against our will, so to speak. So anyway, it's just something to think about, as far as this gift called grace that Christ gives us. It's not that there aren't some responsibilities, but the responsibility that we have is a little bit different than we think. So there is grace, okay? And it is a free gift. And, we have a certain amount of responsibility still, because there is a Bible verse that says we're saved by grace, not by works. And a lot of people talk about that. And a lot of people forget the verse that's almost right after that, where it says, but yes, we're saved by grace, but if we love the Lord, we're going to try to strive to do what the Lord wants for us. So it's kind of like, we love the Lord, and so we want to do the things that the Lord wants for us, which ultimately are good for us because the Lord loves us. And so he doesn't want to see us in pain. He doesn't want to see us hurting. And so I just wanted to run that by you, and we're going to talk again next week. Talk to you later. Good night.